So first thing first is like, please introduce yourself. The one thing which we want to hear about you is like, what really pushed you to come and join Web3? That is one thing. What was your commitment and that transition journey of yours? And then we will kick it off the entire discussion from there on.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds great. So thanks, Prashant, so much for having me on. I'm very excited to join this session and very excited that you consider me as a builder. I'll give a quick intro and I'll share my journey from the non-Web3 world into the Web3 world. And maybe I'll actually start in chronological order. I mean, my background is I spent my early career in mining industry. And for most people in Web3, it's like, oh, Bitcoin mining. It's like, no, the actual digging dirt out of the ground type of mining and doing metals and commodities sales and trading in Southeast Asia and China. And then I went through a lot of different, kind of career reinventions. I was a consultant as well for some time. And actually, just before Web3, I was a consultant with Digital McKinsey in Southeast Asia. And so we were doing a lot of digital transformations in the region. We were working with a lot of legacy businesses, banks, insurance companies, industrial companies, et cetera, that were looking for ways to, upgrade their technology stack, to leverage, new technologies, et cetera. And, it was interesting work because it felt like it was, cutting edge, right? But of course, the feeling and the reality was definitely very different. Well, I had actually heard about Bitcoin since like around 2012, and I didn't pay much attention. And so around the time of DeFi summer, I really started to pay a lot of attention into Web3. And of course, at that time, DeFi was the only thing that most people were talking about. And I remember I took some time off from my job, took about 2-3 months off to understand what this was about, to use some of these applications and these protocols and just kind of play around with it and understand what were some of the benefits and what this new technology could do. And I think one of the things that really struck me was that, I was able to compare the potential of Web3 versus the potential of a lot of the, kind of incremental technologies that I was working on with, with clients when I was a consultant. And I always like to joke, I like to say that, all these digital transformations, especially at the banks, it's just lipstick on a pig, right? It's not really moving the needle and it's not a paradigm shift. And I think when I started to really look into the Web3 space, I realized that it was definitely a paradigm shift, something that would be as big as the invention of the internet or as big as, the printing press, or maybe even bigger than those two. And I just felt this calling. I just felt like I need to be in this space, right? I'm not the earliest, but I know I'm still early and I want to be part of this. And I left consulting. I was lucky that, it's one of those things where you ask around like, hey, do you know anyone in this space? And they'll say, oh, there's a couple of people and, you should talk to them. And so I ended up joining Longhash Ventures initially as a consultant, funny enough. And, I was helping out with on the accelerator side, I was helping with one of the cohorts with the teams on basically how to tell a story about, what is it that they're building? What does their technology do? What does it help solve? And it was a great way to learn about Web3, right? Because even for me, I had to ask a lot of basic questions around like, okay, what does the technology do? What problem are you solving? And how can we actually tell this in a compelling way to investors, users, and partners? And that's what ended up happening.
Awesome. There are a few things which I have taken during our discussion, right? There's a note which really speaks about the ethos of the Web3 also, right? Where it doesn't matter if you have been doing the coal mining or if you have been doing water mining. The only intent of yours is to just join the Web3 and seeing the entire inclusion of money, which I call it, right? So in real term, and you pointed it very rightly, right? So when we talk about the banks and everyone, it's like, so everyone is just talking about, I don't know like why they don't even talk about all of these inclusion. Maybe because they are the mediators. If they start talking about all of these things, then they will start losing the money and there won't be any more money playing around in the streets.